Welcome to The Deep Dive, the show where we take a massive stack of sources, articles, research papers, reunion recaps, and distill them into the most compelling, practical, and often surprising nuggets of knowledge, just for you.
Today, we're immersing ourselves in an ocean of emotional manipulation, high-stakes drama, and some highly questionable decision-making.
That sounds about right.
We are diving deep into the Netflix behemoth that is the Ultimatum reality franchise, spanning the original U.S. seasons, Queer Love, and the international versions from France and South Africa.
That is right. Whether you watched a tearful proposal or an explosive table-flipping exit, you know this show centers on one central, high-pressure, dramatic maneuver, the ultimatum. But the question that underpins our entire investigation and what we want you to walk away understanding is this. Is the ultimatum fundamentally a desperate act of emotional coercion, or is it a genuinely necessary mechanism for establishing crucial, non-negotiable relationship boundaries?
And that is our mission today. We are moving beyond the immediate gossip and the raw drama, though we will get to the most shocking outcomes, to analyze the actual patterns of conflict, failure, and genuine growth across these televised social experiments.
Right. We need to sharply contrast the show's whole premise with what professional psychology actually advises about building healthy, resilient relationships.
Exactly.
Our source material is incredibly rich. We have detailed reunion breakdowns, professional psychological critiques, fan analysis detailing the long-term trajectories of these couples, and even a fascinating dive into how viewers process these intense relationship dynamics through the surprisingly structured world of erotic fan fiction.
Wow, that's a wild ride.
It is. So let us get into the core anatomy of relationship pressure and start to unpack this experiment.
Okay, let's start with the mechanism itself. The show brands itself as a social experiment, and it's built on a foundation of intense time-limited stress. You start with 6 established couples. In each one partner issues the ultimatum. Either commit to marriage by the end of the process or break up forever.
And the timeline is incredibly aggressive. I mean, it's almost designed to force a breakdown rather than foster any genuine reflection. They're given just 8 weeks.
8 weeks. To make a life-altering decision about their partnership?
It's nothing.
It's nothing. And the time constraint is the first layer of pressure. The second, and far more critical layer, is the mandatory separation and the introduction of new romantic variables.
Okay, detail that structure for us.
Yeah.
Because it's quite surgical in its design for maximum emotional chaos.
It really is. It begins with an initial dating period where all the participants mix and mingle with the partners from the other 5 couples. Then they choose a new partner from that group.
Someone they felt a spark with.
Exactly, someone they felt a connection with, and they enter a 3-week trial marriage.
Trial marriage. So they're cohabitating, sharing a bed, getting intimate.
They are essentially playing house with a total stranger, all while their original partner is doing the exact same thing right down the hall.
It is a deliberate provocation. It has to be. It forces jealousy, it forces comparison, and confrontation.
Absolutely. And then, after those 3 intense weeks, they swap back. They spend another 3 weeks in a second trial marriage, but this time with their original partner.
Presumably to see if the temporary grass they found was truly greener, or if that initial separation gave them any clarity.
Which is why we need to move quickly past the superficial drama and focus on the psychological impact. This entire structure is built on the idea that pressure creates commitment.
And that's the core conflict, right? The very title of the show versus healthy relationship theory. The critical difference between issuing an ultimatum and establishing a healthy boundary.
That distinction is crucial, and it's the key actionable takeaway for anyone listening. Because the show's title endorses this combative approach, while the successful outcomes, the ones that actually last, almost always validate the need for a collaborative approach.
So what is the fundamental difference, psychologically speaking, between these two concepts?
Well, the ultimatum, as the show portrays it, is a final resort. It's delivered in desperation. It is a demand for change with a rigid time limit and a specific relationship-ending consequence.
It's a threat.
It's a threat. Its primary goal is to control the partner's behavior, to force them to propose, to stop a certain behavior, to agree to a timeline. It is rooted in fear, and it is inherently combative. It says, do this or lose me.
So it closes the dialogue and just forces compliance through fear.
Precisely. Now, a boundary, the proactive and mature alternative, is entirely different. Setting a boundary is about clearly communicating your own needs and limits, and doing so without attempting to control the other person's decision-making.
It opens the conversation.
It opens the conversation for dialogue and collaboration. It says, This is what I need to feel safe and respected. If you cannot meet me here, I may have to make a choice about my future, but I want to discuss how we get there together.
I think the practical example we found in the source material really highlights this difference. Let's say you are concerned about your partner's emotional relationship with an ex.
Okay.
The combative ultimatum approach would be, if you don't block your ex on all social media by tomorrow, I'm breaking up with you. That is just pure control rooted in fear.
Right. And the boundary approach reframes that entirely. It leads with self-awareness, and it invites your partner to understand your internal state.
So what would that sound like?
You might say something like, when I see you communicating frequently with your ex, I feel intense anxiety and a sense of disconnect because I worry about where our relationship stands. My boundary is that I need to feel like I am your clear priority. Could we discuss what level of interaction with an ex feels respectful to both of us and what action we can take so that I feel secure?
That shifts the focus from you must change your behavior to I need to feel safe and I invite you to help me feel safe. It promotes emotional attunement. But the show relies on the former. So why do ultimatums, despite the dramatic payoff, often fail or cause long-term harm?
Because they undermine the very trust they seek to solidify. They rely on pressure. And if a partner complies, it is often a fear-based, short-term fix. It's a means to avoid immediate loss, rather than a genuine commitment to lasting internal change.
So you get the proposal.
You get the proposal, but the resentment for being forced into that position, for being controlled, that simmers beneath the surface. And when that pressure cooker environment is removed, the resentment surfaces and the relationship structure just collapses.
That makes perfect sense. They achieve temporary compliance, but never true emotional alignment. Now, we've established that ultimatums are usually toxic, but you mentioned there can be rare, almost paradoxical upsides. How so?
Well, if an issue is critical, say, differing views on children or debt or infidelity, and it has been minimized, denied, or actively avoided for years.
Right, the elephant in the room.
Exactly. An ultimatum, when used as an absolute last resort after all other collaborative efforts have failed, can clarify non-negotiable boundaries. It forces accountability. It prevents the slow, agonizing erosion of long-term resentment by finally addressing that critical issue head-on.
So the ultimatum doesn't fix the issue.
No, but it forces a decision point that the couple was too avoidant to reach otherwise.
So we are basically watching a social experiment designed to see if raw reactive pressure can force that genuine alignment, or if it just achieves that fear-based temporary compliance.
That's the test.
Let's look at the results then, starting with the 2 U.S. seasons of Marry or Move On, and see if we can identify which mechanism was at play in the outcomes.
Okay. Season 1 provided some of the most dramatic and shocking outcomes, primarily because it demonstrated the chaotic nature of loss avoidance. Let's start with the couple that was arguably the biggest surprise, Madeline Ballatori and Colby Kissinger.
Madeline and Colby were a true roller coaster. Colby issued the ultimatum. Madeline, during her trial marriage with Randall, connected intensely, and I remember thinking, along with most viewers, that she was going to leave Colby for Randall.
Oh, yeah. Everyone thought that. Colby, meanwhile, had a very different trial marriage with April, largely focused on venting about their respective partners. Very platonic.
Very platonic. The twist, however, was monumental. On ultimatum day, they bypassed the engagement stage entirely.
And got married immediately after the show wrapped. And their subsequent trajectory has been nothing short of explosive.
Explosive is the right word. They showed up at the reunion already expecting their first child, Josephine, born in 2022.
They quickly followed that with their son, Conrad, in 2023, and now they are expecting their third child, a baby boy, in September 2024.
That is an extremely rapid expansion of a family for a couple who, just weeks earlier, were on the precipice of a breakup.
This outcome suggests that for Colby and Madeline, the experiment worked, not by changing their personalities, but by creating an intense fear of loss. Madeline needed the space to realize what life without Colby looked like, and Colby needed to see the threat of her connecting deeply with someone else.
So their quick path to marriage and family was maybe a rapid emotional consolidation spurred by the dramatic confrontation they had avoided for so long.
I think so. It was the ultimatum forcing an answer to a question they had procrastinated on, and it resulted in alignment.
We also saw Shanika Mari and Randall Griffin, who left the show engaged, and later solidified that commitment by marrying in June 2025. This is another clear success story.
And you had the early departures who got engaged and stayed married, like Alexis and Hunter or Nate and Lauren.
The key takeaway from these successes seems to be that the ultimatum may force two people who are already compatible, but suffering from complacency or avoidance, into decisive action.
Exactly. Now contrast that with the explosive exits. Take April Marie and Jake Cunningham. April issued the ultimatum, but Jake formed a deep romantic connection with Ray Williams during his trial marriage.
And the ultimate result, April and Jake split.
They did. And April's trajectory is a classic example of moving on and finding authentic happiness outside the pressure cooker. She later welcomed two daughters, Mila and Ava, with her new boyfriend, Cody Cooper.
She used the ultimatum process to clarify that her partner was not aligned with her future goals. It allowed her to set a healthy boundary and move on.
And what about the ill-fated coupling of Jake and Ray? They chose each other in the finale, with Jake offering travel tickets, suggesting a future.
But they broke up quickly afterward. Jake admitted they both needed closure with their original partners, April and Zay.
And this illustrates a critical point. While the trial marriage can expose strong attraction, it doesn't build a sustainable relationship structure capable of surviving the emotional baggage of the experiment.
No, it can't. And Ray Williams' journey post-Zay Wilson is a powerful story of personal discovery catalyzed by the explosion of her original relationship.
Their relationship with Zay had crumbled after Zay slept with his trial partner, Shanika Mari, leading to a physical and highly turbulent argument.
Yeah, that was rough.
After the quick breakup with Jake, Ray engaged in significant self-discovery, which led to her coming out at the reunion. She spoke openly about struggling with her identity and feeling uncomfortable with being bisexual, but since ending her relationship with Zay, she realized she was ready to pursue relationships with women.
And now she is embracing this new identity. She even became a Playboy model. The ultimatum, while destructive to her relationship with Zay, cleared the path for radical self-acceptance.
And Zay, of course, leveraged the experience into a reality TV career. He moved from the ultimatum to Perfect Match, where he failed to find love, and then Celebrity X on the beach.
And he's now reportedly dating Larsa Pippen. It just demonstrates the varied paths of participants. Some use the experience for personal growth, others for professional visibility.
Moving to season 2, we saw a higher initial success rate, perhaps because the couples involved had longer, stronger foundations, which were simply marred by complacency or specific commitment anxieties.
The story of Ryann and James Morris is the perfect illustration of overcoming complacency. High school sweethearts, 7 years deep. Ryann gave the ultimatum because she felt James had become completely comfortable, complacent, and was refusing to take the next step.
Their story is a beautiful example of the experiment working through contrast. Ryan's connection with Trey showed her what it felt like to be highly valued and prioritized, which contrasted sharply with the routine she had accepted with James.
And James, seeing the genuine threat and receiving that necessary jolt, used his trial marriage for introspection. He realized his avoidance was about fear of failure, not lack of love.
Right. And the result was a definitive proposal in the finale. They later reproposed privately, married in late 2023, and welcomed daughter Sunny. This wasn't fear-based compliance. This was a necessary shock to move past long-term avoidance.
It seems so. Similarly, Trey Brunson and Rhea Nairi. Trey gave the ultimatum, driven by a desire for a stable, traditional marriage. They succeeded. Trey proposed, Rhea accepted.
And at the reunion, Rhea was pregnant. They welcomed a baby boy shortly after, planning a destination wedding for early 2025. These are couples where the commitment was likely already present, and the show simply provided the necessary pressure to execute.
Even the early departures, Lisa Horne and Brian Okoye, who later got engaged, and Kat Shelton and Alex Chapman, who are now married.
Right, they all confirmed that simply entering the process was enough to clarify their bonds. The sheer absurdity of the structure forced them to realize, we don't need this drama, we just need each other.
Okay, so that brings us to the queer love experiment, where the dynamics seem to shift pretty profoundly. This spin-off provided incredibly intense case studies in attachment styles, conflict resolution, and the painful process of setting boundaries when emotional investment is at its absolute maximum.
It really did. The first season of Queer Love was a stark reminder of how high conflict dynamics can just implode under pressure. The survival rate was abysmal.
Who was left standing?
Sam Mark and Ozzy Chow were the lone single couple still together as of mid-2025.
Okay, so just one. Sam issued the ultimatum. Their success, according to the commentary, was directly tied to Ozzy learning to communicate vulnerability. Ozzy struggles significantly with commitment and conflict avoidance.
And the experiment stripped away their ability to retreat. It forced them to engage with Sam's needs. Their outcome confirms that the rare success of the ultimatum lies in forcing an avoidant partner to develop the skills necessary for commitment.
So it wasn't the marriage itself that was the goal, but the fundamental change in communication style that made the marriage possible.
Precisely. But the shadow of season 1 is permanently cast by the toxic implosion of Tiff Durr and Mildred Woody.
Oh man. They got engaged on Ultimatum Day, but split before the reunion, citing a relationship that was unhealthy and tumultuous.
And the reunion was a masterclass in how manipulation plays out publicly. Mildred revealed she had been arrested at their shared home after the split for throwing furniture at Tiff.
Tiff later revealed they endured years of physical and emotional abuse, confirming they ultimately walked away because they couldn't stand for it, especially with Mildred having a child.
And Mildred's strategy at the reunion was classic gaslighting. She controlled the narrative, deflecting blame by accusing Tiff of inviting dates over while they were still splitting rent.
A detail Tiff clarified was post-breakup, after Mildred had already moved out.
Right. And Mildred also weaponized Tiff's genuine confusion, twisting a naive question. Tiff asked about their finances into the absurd claim that Tiff tried to make her special needs son pay rent.
It's textbook narcissistic behavior, using deflection and extreme, exaggerated accusations to make the victim look like the aggressor.
Which is why Tiff's eventual walkout from the reunion, walking out in tears, was not a breakdown. It was a huge act of self-care. Tiff realized they were done defending themselves against a narcissist who was committed only to steamrolling their reality.
And Tiff confirmed the lasting damage, stating they had to enter a lot of therapy after the reunion to process the gaslighting and manipulation.
It provides a sobering look at how the reality TV environment can give a platform for and amplify existing abusive dynamics, creating public trauma that requires professional intervention to heal.
Okay, so let's pivot to Queer Love Season 2, which demonstrated a higher success rate, often built on a foundation of necessary confrontation and boundary setting.
Right. And we have to analyze Pilar and Haley. They were 10 years deep, with Haley giving the ultimatum due to Pilar's inability to commit fully, which was partially rooted in long-term family estrangement over her coming out.
And Haley's trial marriage was intense. She fell hard for Megan. They were sharing I love yous and being intimate.
And that vulnerability, that deep connection, was the necessary catalyst. It forced Pilar to realize that Haley was serious, that she needed security, and that she was capable of forming a deep bond elsewhere.
So the resolution shows the experiment working exactly as intended. Haley reaffirmed her primary commitment to Pilar, and Pilar, shocked into prioritizing her relationship, proposed.
And Haley proposed back 1 month later. Their success is attributed to the show forcing Pilar to overcome her avoidant tendencies and step into the security Haley required.
Their commitment arc had powerful resonance. They are planning an elopement due to the desire for legal security. And most importantly, Pilar achieved family reconciliation, introducing Haley as her fiancé.
It demonstrates that the pressure, though extreme, can force profound personal growth when commitment avoidance is the primary roadblock.
Then you have AJ and Brittany, the flirty fairy tale. Brittany gave the ultimatum. AJ, despite being a notorious flirt with almost everyone in the cast, proposed.
And they are still together and engaged. AJ was noted for her quirky habit of talking about herself in the third person, but Brittany clearly found that charming.
Their success seems rooted in the fact that AJ's behavior, the intense flirting, was largely superficial. It didn't represent a lack of commitment, just a personality quirk.
Exactly. The ultimatum gave AJ the space to realize Brittany accepted her completely. They even maintained close friendships with the rest of the cast, highlighting a surprisingly stable post-show life.
And what about Kyle and Bridget? Kyle issued the ultimatum, while Bridget questioned the necessity of legal marriage. Despite Bridget's hesitation and Kyle's brief flirtation with Pilar, they got engaged.
Bridget's rationale at the end was extremely mature. She still didn't think marriage was necessary for her happiness, but she realized it was essential for Kyle's sense of security and future.
She said yes as a profound act of compromise and emotional generosity.
Proving their relationship was strong enough to accommodate that difference. They are now planning a small desert wedding, a testament to meeting in the middle.
But Season 2 was not without its volatility. The relationship between Megan and Dana, the chaotic survivors, was perceived by many viewers as having a troubling power imbalance.
Megan gave the ultimatum, though she wasn't ready herself, citing family issues. Dana was intimate with Mel, and Megan was intimate with Haley, sharing I love yous. and an intense emotional connection.
Their dynamic was widely seen as controlling, with Dana having a crazy grasp over Megan's mind.
Yet, they are still engaged. Megan cut ties with Haley at Dana's request. Megan proposed. Dana accepted and proposed back.
This outcome, though a success by the show's metrics, really highlights the difference between compliance and health.
I agree. Their success appears rooted in Megan choosing compliance and a familiar, albeit controlling, dynamic over the uncertain but deeply emotional connection she found with Haley.
And finally, the quick demise of Mel and Marie. They got engaged with a symbolic ring pop that viewers joked was perfect for their fake connection, and they split before the reunion.
Marie came to the reunion angry and humiliated, accusing Mel of cheating. And this is where Marie's pain led to a highly regrettable boundary violation.
Right. She publicly brought up Mel's private medical details, including her lupus and infertility, out of justified resentment.
Marie realized Mel was constantly drawn to drama and chaos, always retreating from the safety and stability Marie offered. So Marie set a final, necessary boundary. She left the relationship to rediscover her own identity and self-worth.
The ring pop proposal, lacking any genuine emotional foundation, just crumbled immediately under the weight of real life.
Totally.
So the global versions of the ultimatum seem to intensify the psychological pathology. They provided clear case studies in long-term emotional abuse and volatile behavior, far surpassing the drama of the U.S. versions. Let's journey to the ultimatum. France.
Okay. In the French edition, the central focus of commentary quickly became the relationship between Scott and Lindsay. Scott was universally characterized by fans and critics as a textbook case of an emotionally abusing boyfriend and a manipulative individual.
The history alone was troubling. Lindsay was 24, Scott was 28, and they'd been together for 8 years.
8 years.
Starting when Lindsay was just 16 and Scott was 20. That age gap at the start of the relationship immediately flags a potential power imbalance that viewers noticed and criticized.
Absolutely. And the initial dynamic was classic commitment avoidance. Scott was adamantly against marriage and children. Then, when Lindsay issued the ultimatum, his behavior shifted dramatically into what psychologists recognize as love bombing.
Okay, detail that manipulative shift for us.
Scott suddenly changed his tune, declaring marriage and children were merely small concessions he was willing to make to keep Lindsay. This isn't genuine emotional growth. This is calculated manipulation.
He was overwhelming her with what she wanted to hear.
Exactly. To immediately pull her back into the relationship structure, knowing that the promise of children would make her feel trapped and less likely to leave later.
He practically bragged about it, admitting he was putting her on a pedestal to overwhelm her, and even stating he felt she wasn't truly capable of leaving him. Lindsay initially broke up with him in the finale, recognizing the toxicity. But the sources confirm that, heartbreakingly, she took him back shortly after, a classic sign of trauma bonding.
Trauma bonding occurs when the victim develops an unhealthy attachment to the abuser, often cycling through periods of intense conflict followed by periods of great intimacy where the abuser reinforces dependence. Scott knew Lindsay was trauma bonded to the relationship.
Which gave him the confidence to be so manipulative on camera.
The good news, though, is that the breakup finally stuck. Scott announced their brutal breakup in November 2023. While painful, this separation was hailed by viewers as Lindsay finally breaking free from a long-term, emotionally abusive dynamic.
It underscores how the ultimatum, in such severe cases, only amplifies the existing pathology. It often requires multiple painful attempts to secure a clean exit.
And shifting to the ultimatum. South Africa, the show highlighted intense volatility and, in one case, alleged physical abuse. Kanya and Kalani issued the ultimatum to Nkateko Mahand, demanding princess treatment.
Kanya quickly became the classic villain. Her behavior was extremely volatile, including documented instances of her hitting Nkateko and throwing a wine bottle at him during filming.
But Nkateko's response, however, was the real psychological puzzle. Despite the documented physical and emotional violence, he repeatedly defended her, calling her a wonderful person and making excuses for her outbursts.
This dynamic led to commentary suggesting he was enabling the abuse or possibly displaying signs of battered husband syndrome, a form of Stockholm syndrome where a victim defends or justifies their abuser's actions.
It indicates a deeply ingrained pattern of attraction to volatility or a severe power imbalance.
Ultimately, Nkateko and Kanya separated, confirming the relationship was too damaging to sustain. As the sources wisely noted, coming to terms with the extent of abuse in such a volatile relationship takes time, distance, and often extensive therapy.
The pressure of the show did nothing but accelerate the breakdown.
We also saw Ruth Cathide issue an ultimatum to Isaac Kaninda. driven by Isaac's cultural hesitation to introduce her to his family unless he was absolutely certain they would marry.
A severe case of commitment avoidance.
Their story ended in infidelity, though, not just commitment issues. Ruth confessed to Nola's partner, Lebo, that she and Nola were intimate during their trial marriage.
That confession shattered Isaac's trust, leading to the end of their relationship. The experiment created the opportunity for infidelity, which Isaac found unforgivable, proving that external pressure cannot fix internal moral or trust boundaries.
And finally, Lindell Neeb and Sizikeli Dlamini Siza, a case study in ulterior motives. Lindell issued the ultimatum after only 6 months of dating.
Only 6 months. He, a professional model who appeared on The Masked Singer South Africa, was widely accused of seeking fame through the show.
His behavior strongly supported this theory. He actively engaged in what was described as gaslighting, warning Siza against using pet names and refraining from showing affection.
It was so hypocritical, demanding a lifelong legal commitment while simultaneously withholding affection and engaging in controlling behavior. His true goal seemed to be maximizing screen time and drama, not securing a marriage.
Across all the international versions, whether it's the calculated love bombing in France or the intense volatility in South Africa, the pattern is consistent.
The televised ultimatum does not foster health. It accelerates the exposure of deep-seated pathology, manipulation, and fundamental personality misalignment.
So we have seen that the emotional stakes on the ultimatum are incredibly high, often resulting in long-term trauma that requires significant psychological intervention. We saw Tiff from Queer Love need extensive therapy post-reunion.
Yeah.
This raises important questions about the aftermath of reality TV.
Tiff's revelation that they had to seek a lot of therapy to deal with the manipulation and gaslighting from Mildred following the reunion really highlights the necessity of professional support.
The sources confirm that the ultimatum did offer therapy to participants, which is a baseline expectation in high-intensity reality TV.
It is, but external commentary often questions the nature of this provided therapy. Is it genuine, sustained therapeutic support designed for healing, or is it primarily a legal safeguard for production, ensuring they have covered their liability when exposing contestants to emotional crises?
It's likely a mix, but the very format of the show, designed to trigger and exploit deep-seated attachment issues, means the psychological recovery period is often lengthy and external to the production's care.
Tiff had to take radical accountability for their own well-being by choosing to walk out of that reunion and seek independent professional help.
The show, regardless of production ethics, serves as a powerful public case study. It activates viewers, prompting massive, often insightful discussions about relationship psychology. We see this often in discussions regarding attachment styles, anxious versus avoidant partners.
That pattern played out so painfully with Marita and Ashley in Queer Love Season 2.
That case is incredibly complex and tragic. Ashley gave the ultimatum, stemming from her avoidant attachment style. She struggled to provide the romance and reassurance. Marita, who was clearly anxious and seeking validation, desperately needed.
And adding another layer of complexity, Ashley had a history of intimate partner abuse prior to the show, making the ensuing conflict even more delicate.
The reunion was a spectacle of unresolved conflict. They broke up, and the dynamic between the anxious pursuer Marita and the avoidant shutdown partner Ashley culminated in Marita's explosive rage.
It turned dark so quickly. Marita screamed, "I hate you," and in a moment that shocked viewers across all seasons when Ashley mentioned that her grandmother had died.
Marita responded, "I don't care your grandma died."
That moment, that shocking cruelty, seemed to reveal a deep regression or lack of maturity in Marita's ability to manage intense emotional pain.
It showed that when the anxious partner's fear of abandonment is triggered, the pain can turn instantly into cruelty, completely bypassing all boundaries of human compassion.
The sources noted that Ashley was perceived by some as manipulative during the reunion, potentially forcing Marita to appear as the villain. But Marita's reaction, that intense rage and cruelty, was too severe to ignore.
It confirmed that they needed a clean, definitive break instead of continuing the pursuit and withdrawal cycle, as they were reportedly planning to travel together post-reunion.
The show detonated their relationship, but in doing so, it exposed the need for massive personal work on both sides.
So the reality of these relationships is chaotic, messy, and fundamentally unhealthy. But viewers, desperate to process this high-intensity emotional volatility, often seek to rewrite the narrative into a structure they can understand. Which leads us to one of the most unusual ways fans engage, through fan fiction, specifically the phenomenon known as the Omegaverse.
This is a fascinating sociological observation about how people process power dynamics. We are crossing into serious niche fan culture here, specifically found on Archive of Our Own, or AO3, one of the major fan fiction platforms.
Well, visit.
The Omegaverse, or ABO, is an erotic fan fiction subgenre that has gained immense popularity by reframing character dynamics into a highly structured dominance hierarchy.
Describe the framework. It's based on a mythical wolf hierarchy, but it's applied to human or human-like characters, right?
Exactly. It creates three rigid, biologically predetermined roles. You have the alphas, who are dominant, physically strong, and often assertive leaders. The betas are neutral, mixing traits from the extremes.
I mean, the Omega.
And then you have the omegas, who are cast as submissive, gentle, nurturing, and crucially, for the erotic element, they are capable of getting pregnant regardless of their anatomical sex. This is the mpreg, or male pregnancy trope.
So fans are taking the messy, chaotic, real-life power imbalances they see in shows like The Ultimatum, The Manipulation of Scott, The Volatility of Kanya, The Pursuit of Marita, and slotting these characters into established, rigid, dominant submission roles. Why does that appeal?
Because the messiness of reality is emotionally taxing. The fan is drawn to the Omegaverse because it plays with power dynamics and actively upends traditional gender roles, while simultaneously offering a sense of order and structure.
So it's a way to make sense of the chaos.
It's a way to make sense of the chaos. When reality TV relationships are a confusing cycle of trauma bonding and gaslighting, the Omegaverse provides an established framework of primal instincts and rule-bound roles. It grants the reader a fictional sense of control over dynamics that are uncontrollable in reality.
And it comes with these detailed, specific biological tropes that define the relationships and the conflict within them.
Yes, the tropes codify the dynamics, making the submission and dominance expected. For example, nodding is where the base of the alpha's anatomy inflates during sex, locking them inside the omega, a physical symbol of possession and binding commitment.
Which speaks to the deep-seated fear of loss and lack of commitment we see in the ultimatum. Nodding is a physical assurance that the partner cannot leave immediately.
Precisely. Then you have heats, where omegas become overwhelmingly aroused and are driven towards sex and pregnancy, sometimes managed by suppressants. This removes the agency and decision-making burden, allowing for a primal, instinctual path to intimacy and procreation.
Which is the exact opposite of the difficult, rational decisions required in the ultimatum. And what about the chemical assertion of power? Pheromones.
Alphas use strong pheromones to assert dominance, establish authority, or scent mark their mates, providing a clear biological sign of ownership. Omegas emit powerful, attractive pheromones during their heat. These biological mechanisms provide a sense of predestination and inevitability to the relationship.
Which is the antithesis of the stressful, choice-driven reality we see on Netflix. It is a complete immersive fantasy world designed to process and rewrite the emotional volatility, offering fictional clarity over relationships that in reality are deeply chaotic and often lack any healthy boundaries whatsoever.
It's a coping mechanism. It's a way for the viewer to say, the reality is too damaging and too confusing, so I will recast this toxic relationship into a structured fantasy where the abuse or the imbalance is simply the expected nature of the rules. It confirms the power of narrative in processing emotional truth.
This entire deep dive,
Yep.
spanning multiple countries and complex relationship dynamics, has led us to one clear, unified conclusion. The reality TV ultimatum premise is fundamentally fraught with psychological danger.
It is.
It's designed to prioritize rapid, fear-based coercion over the necessary, slow work of genuine, collaborative emotional attunement.
And while genuine, lasting commitment and growth can occur, we saw the shocking successes of Madeline and Colby, who capitalized on loss avoidance, and the hard-won boundaries of Haley and Tiller. The format consistently amplifies pre-existing toxicity, volatility, and abusive patterns.
As we witness vividly with Tiff and Mildred and Scott and Lindsay, the ultimate lesson for you, the learner, is simple. Do not confuse an ultimatum with a boundary. An ultimatum is a desperate, often manipulative endpoint designed to force a hand through pressure.
A boundary is a clear, collaborative starting point designed to promote honest dialogue and define your needs. True, lasting relationships thrive when partners communicate responsively and proactively, not reactively under duress.
And that leads us to the final provocative thought we want to leave you with. The show promises to see if an ultimatum works, but what if the true success stories, the ones that last beyond the reunion, are the couples who ultimately chose each other, despite the experiment? not because the experiment forced them to.
What if genuine commitment only appears when both partners take radical, independent accountability for their own emotional health, communication flaws, and behavior, rather than relying on external, televised pressure to manufacture a change?
That internal accountability is the one element the entire production budget of the ultimatum cannot manufacture, but which is absolutely essential for any relationship to actually survive. Think about that the next time you feel the tempting pressure to issue a demand instead of setting a thoughtful collaborative limit.